Welcome to the Store Builders Podcast, the place where we talk to industry experts and successful store owners about what it takes to build a thriving e-commerce business. Every episode, we deliver the raw, unfiltered recommendations that will catapult your store to new heights. Ready to get serious about expanding your e-commerce empire? Well, then let's get to work.
I'm your host, Ryan Cowden, and this week we're joined once again by Chris Lemma. In this episode of the Store Builders Podcast, Chris and I discuss the different ways you, as an online store builder, can create a sustainable business model for yourself and your projects. As an online store builder, you have a valuable skill set, but knowing how to structure your services and knowing what to charge is a different matter entirely. How should your clients pay you? How much should you charge? What will the arrangement be? There are many factors to consider when you're trying to set up a sustainable online business. Today, Chris defines the sustainable business model and weighs various factors freelancers and online stores need to consider in order to create profitable enterprises. In this episode, you'll hear the definition of sustainability and why it serves as the main goal of our online business, the pros and cons of different fee structures, including different reasons for charging by flat rate or payment by the hour, and the ways your price and fee structure might change over time, depending on your clients, expertise, and economic performance. If you're looking for the best way to monetize your online services in store, then this episode is right for you. There's a lot of actionable advice in this episode, so grab something to write with because you're going to want to take notes. As always, I'll be back on the other side to wrap up any loose ends. So, without any further ado, here's my conversation with Chris Lemma. All right, Chris, welcome back to the show. How you doing, man?
I am good. It's been a long day. I am glad to be here with you and to be chatting about business stuff. I love when we talk about store builders and how to run a successful business. Particularly today's topic is one that I'm excited for.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. Let's jump right in. So we're talking today about how to structure your store building services and getting into pricing and that kind of thing. But a key topic we need to hit before that is sustainability. So what is business sustainability?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever been to a food truck that you love, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're like, this is the best food truck ever. And then you go tell all your friends and family, and you tell your buddies, and you tell everybody that, your coworkers. And then one day you grab a couple friends because now you're in the mood. You're like, whether it's chili dogs or it's street tacos or whatever it is, you're like, we're going. And you go all the way to the corner where they normally are, and they're not there anymore. And you're like, oh man, this sucks, right? That's the exact opposite of sustainability, right? Okay. Sustainability is you are making enough money to stay on that corner, right? You don't have to leave. You don't disappear. You don't go away, right? And unfortunately, most of us experience the opposite of sustainability, right? Stores that we are excited about, stores that we like, we tell our friends, and then when we go back, it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. And it used to be in the world of physical retail that it was a lot harder to get set up in retail. So if you were if you were signing a lease inside a mall, signing a 5-year or 10-year lease, you're not going anywhere. Right? You have done all the business model work. You've done all the pricing work. You've done everything to make sure that you know that you can sign a 3-year or 5-year contract. But an e-commerce store doesn't take nearly that much work, right? And it doesn't put those kind of, hooks in you like you have to be paying this, for 5 years. And so a lot more people could spin up stores, and a lot more people could become builders of those stores. And it all moved really quickly. And all of a sudden, you go, oh, but there's no criteria for how do I know that this guy or this girl is going to be here next month or next year. I literally just got off a call earlier this morning where the bottom line was the store owner says, my developer's gone. And you go, what? And they go, yeah, they bought a boat. They wanted to live on the boat. And then they started taking off on the boat. And so I would send them email, and their response was, hey, I'm getting this email via satellite phone. I will be available in 3 weeks when I dock and I'm in port, and maybe we talk then. And they're like, can't wait 3 weeks. Like
Yeah,
I need it now, right? And you
Right.
go, yeah. So sustainability is all about making sure that you're making enough money, right? When you calculate everything into it, that you'll be here next month, and the month after
Right.
that, the month after
Right.
that.
Okay. So if you're a store builder working for a website, how much of finding that sustainability is on you versus the store owner? Like, is that a conversation that you two have, or do you kind of take the lead on that?
Yeah, I think it's all about the store builder. They have to do
Okay.
their own homework, right?
Okay.
Because someone who's getting the store built for them, they have some crazy ideas, right? Like, let's say that you have a Shopify store, right? And you're paying $29 a month, which no one pays $29 a month, right? The average person on a $29 plan pays $89. But you start at the $29 plan, and then you add a countdown counter for $15, and you add a page builder for another $20. And so eventually you're at $89 a month. That's fine. But you have a whole store with all sorts of software for $89 a month. And then you go to your developer and you say, I want a special kind of coupon system. I want a coupon, like the Shopify coupon thing doesn't work for me. I want a very specific kind of referral coupon that brings other customers' prices down as you recommend them. This is what I want, right?
Yeah.
And the developer says, okay, well, do you have budget? And they're like, yeah. Why don't you just make it another $10 a month? You're like, $10 a month? Like, I'm gonna have to put in $10,000 worth of development, right? At $10 a month, I'll never earn that back, right? Like, and so if you let your customer, right, the store owner, dictate to you what sustainability means to them, because they'll say something like, yeah, but it's $10 for me, and then you sell it to 1,000 other people and you'll make all the money in the world. And you're like, no. First of all, that's not my business. That's not my business model. But third of all, you're asking me for the work. I'm going to tell you the price. If you don't want it, that's fine. That's fair. But I'm not going to have you tell me the price while also telling me all you want while I have to build it, right? So,
Right.
so at the end of the day, it is a store builder's job to know what they should be charging, what other people are charging, what the value is in what they're charging. Like, I mean, it comes back to a store builder, and what works for one store builder may not work for someone else, right? If I'm competing with someone, but they're in Eastern Europe and their staff costs them $40,000 a year, and I happen to be in California and my staff costs me $120,000 a year, we're not going to be able to price the same way, right? And so I can't steal someone else's pricing just because theirs looks better than mine, right? Every store builder has to calculate for themselves what's the right price.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations or things to consider when you're just debating, do I pay for the project or do I pay for like the hours that I spend? Is there kind of a recommendation there?
So when a store builder is pricing, right?
Yeah.
I find that it is far more valuable to do project-based pricing and milestone collection than to do hourly pricing and say weekly collection. And the dynamic there, right, which is obvious once you start digging into it, is if you're doing it hourly and you do a job for one customer, then you do it again for a second, then you do it for a third, your hours will shrink. You will literally get better over time,
Right.
and therefore be paying yourself less, right? That doesn't make any sense. So it makes more sense, right? If you're doing several things over and over, developing expertise, that you charge by the project and you say, oh, what do you want? You want to add a couponing system, you want to add a referring system, you want to add this. This is my price for it, right? This is the fixed price for that. And then if they go and want additional customizations, then you might do okay, that'll be this much more as a total, or that'll be 6 hours more. And so we're going to have to charge a little more. Like, you can get creative with how you do additional hours at the end of something. But initially, I would anchor it on prices that I can pre-calculate based on my experience, my expertise, how much time I think it's going to get, how much it's going to take, and the margin that I want to bake into that. Let me put that as a price and just say that's what that is. I think it's a lot better. I think especially as you develop more and more routine, it's better. The only place where I tell people don't do a project price is if you've never done the project before, right? If you have never done if someone says, hey, I would like to add a, when someone puts a third item in the cart, I want you to be able to pop up a notice that says, hey, if you put 4 or more items, the 5th one's free. But then I also want you to only make the free one the cheapest one in the cart, right? I don't want you to pick the most expensive one and make it. And so you're walking all this through and you go, yeah, I think we should be able to do that, but you've never done it before. And you don't know what tools you're going to use and you don't know how you're going to do it. And you don't know if it's going to take you a couple hours or a couple weeks. That's not the point when you start doing fixed pricing, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So when you're breaking to that, what I normally tell people is do a discovery project, do a little part of it where you're working through requirements and testing some things and pay for that as one piece. And then hopefully you know enough to do a fixed price, or just switch to hourly and go, look, let's be honest, between me and you, I've never done this before. I'm gonna do it as best I can, and we're gonna take some hours, but we're probably gonna burn through some hours, and we're gonna have to sit back and decide, is it still worth having me do it, right? And if I hit it out of the park and we do it quick, that's great. If I don't, we may have to set a point where I say, I don't think this makes cost sense given how much you're investing and how much we're progressing, right?
Yeah. I imagine it'd be good to be transparent along the way, because you don't want to get the project done and then send the client this huge bill that they can't or don't want to pay for.
Yeah. You like in the game of pricing, right? Surprises are horrible. Yeah. So you don't ever want to be in a place where you surprise your customer. So everything is about communication. Everything is about managing expectations. But it's also really, really important to anchor people onto what they should expect before you start anything, right? When you're talking about price. So one of the things I talk about, my cheat sheet is the Jones house, right? So when I was putting a pool in my backyard, right, and I called the pool contractor to come over and look at the backyard and tell me what it would take, he starts telling me about the Jones house down the street, right? Why is he doing that? It's a term called anchoring, right? He's helping me understand that in the realm of all these things, if I had one number in my head, just by telling me about the Jones house, he's anchoring a new number in my head, right? And he can use caveats, right? He can say, well, now, I'm not saying that your house is exactly like the Jones down the street, but there are definite similarities here, right? And then he might tell you about the Smith house. He might tell me about something else, right? And so all of a sudden you start realizing, wow, all these prices are higher than I had thought. Mm-hmm. And then you can be honest and say, listen, it sounds like you do stuff that's about, twice as much as I was expecting. Maybe you're not a good fit for me. Or, customers can say, that's perfect. That's right where I thought it was, right? Mm-hmm. But by anchoring and explaining other comps, you can help a store owner very quickly realize either, yeah, I want to do it, or no, I really don't, right? Imagine if we're talking about that coupon or automatic discount that you add 3 items, then we pop up a note that says when you add a 4th, the 5th is free, which presumes you're going to not only add a 4th, but you're going to add a 5th. And imagine if you say, I can do that for $500. The customer goes, that's brilliant. Do you know how much money I'm going to make? Like, I'm going to make that return in one day. And then you say, it's about $3,000. And they go, I'll make that back up in a week, right? And then you go, it's going to be $20,000. Well, if it's $20,000 and the person's only making $100 a day, they're going to say, no way. But if they're making $200,000 an hour, your $20,000 is nothing, right? So part of what you have to do is try and anchor people and set some expectation. And part of what they have to do is highlight for you, does that return make any sense or not, right? And so you want to have that conversation really early, okay, in terms of what should the expectation be.
Okay, great. Part of another, I think, consideration is when you're kind of setting your own prices would be maybe considering what your competitors are charging.
Yeah.
Are there resources to figure out what other people are charging for the same amount of work or the same quality work?
Well, the challenge, of course, is the word "same" in that question, right?
Okay.
So everybody will say, "Oh, you want to do coupons? I do coupons. I'll do it for $50." Someone says, "I can do discounts. I can do automated discounts. I'll do it for $200." And someone says, "I'll do automated discounts and it'll be $10,000." And you're like, "Whoa, I'm asking for the same thing." And you're like, "Well, no, how they're interpreting it is different, right?"
Okay.
The first person, how they think about a discount and a coupon, and they're like, "Just go into the screen, add this coupon, and then you have coupons." And you're like, "That's not what I'm talking about, right?" So a lot of times the pricing you get back from others is embedded with their own context, their own explanation of what they're delivering. So the best thing you tell store owners is be explicit about what you're asking for. And the best thing you tell store builders, be explicit about what you're delivering, right? The best thing I can do when I'm putting out a proposal as a store builder is to be very explicit about what's included and what's excluded, right? And when they get that list and then they get other people and they go, wow, Chris, you're way more expensive. And I'm like, did you compare what was included and what was excluded? They're like, no, because their stuff only had one line item. And you go, great, well, go ahead and ask them, right? You can use my proposal as a cheat sheet, right? Call them, will you include this? Will you include this? Will you also include the stuff that I had excluded, right? Go ahead, ask them, right? And all of a sudden they discover, oh, they weren't going to do anything like what you were going to do. You go, right. So the word same is the hard part. But in terms of can you find what people are doing, I think you can find a lot of comparatives on the low end, right? You can go to marketplaces and you can Google things and you can search and you can see a lot of people offering stuff, at the low end. That is not where I ever like to play, right? And I don't recommend playing there because not only are you competing with everybody else who's trying to go $1 less than you are, but you're getting the kind of customer who is motivated and excited by how cheap they can get it done. Instead of what I want out of a store owner is someone who's motivated by how much more they can make based on what we're going to do together, right? So I want them looking at the upside, not on the downside of cost. And so on the higher end of things, it's harder to find those comparatives. There's not a place where everyone's just kind of, listing things out. But what you can do, right, is call those competitors up, right? I am not the only one who has called with a different name, right, and said, hi, I'm looking to build a store. I'm looking to do this and that. And I'm wondering ballpark, right? Where are we at? And they go, well, we'd like to have a follow-up call with you and get some information. And do you have an email we can send to you? And so, some people will make it a lot of work to give you a comp. Other people will be like, oh yeah, we can do that. No problem. It's in this range, right? Normally the people who have no problem telling me their ranges are all higher than mine, right? And I'm like, oh, I should charge more, right? People on the, that are pushing down market often advertise it on their website. Look, you can get all this stuff for $100. And you're like, yeah, that's not a space I want to play.
Yeah. Okay. As you get better and your price point starts changing, and you start realizing that you can charge more, do you recommend keeping the same price with your clients who had you when you were cheaper, or is that a testy subject?
No, I don't recommend that. I recommend moving your price point up, but I also recommend giving them the opportunity to stay at that price point. So, I would love, right, for that customer to stay with me and move up with me, right? So, let's say that I had a customer that every time they wanted a fix, they were asking me, and I was doing the fix, and I was doing it for $25 an hour, right? Now I've been doing this for 20 years. Now it's $500 an hour, but they're still sitting around calling me and wanting $25 an hour. The thing that's important to remember is that they're actually paying for two things. They're paying, number one, to get the thing done, and they're paying, number two, to get it done by me. Those are two different factors. So what I normally do is I call them up and I say, hey, thank you so much for being a longtime customer, et cetera. I just want to let you know my price points have moved up significantly over the last several years. And I can't do this work at the price that we've done it in the past. But don't worry. I want to introduce you to someone who will do that work at that price point. So I break up the two, right? You are paying for the work at the price point, and implicitly you are also paying me. Now, what ends up happening is I've now given them a decision point, right? Where they can say, that's fantastic. Introduce us to the guy who's going to do it for $25, which is awesome because I may even create a referral bonus from that person. The more business I send you, the more I get back as a percentage of what I'm sending you because I'm giving you work, right?
Yeah.
So I can get even paid off the work I'm not doing, which is awesome. And the customer will say, thank you. That's all I wanted. I still want to make those changes at $25 an hour. Or the customer says, no, I don't want to go with someone else. I want you on my project. And you go, yeah, no, I get that. I'm just way more expensive. And they go, fine, I'll pay it.
Okay.
Right. And now you've helped them move up to your regular rate. Now, I don't recommend that you wait to have that conversation from 25 to 500. That's silly, right? But you go, hey, if you're 25 and now you're 50, have the conversation. If you're 50 and then you're 100, have the conversation. And eventually, by always giving them that option to stay at that price point, you end up with a lot of customers that are thankful. And later, when they get to that point where they're like, now I need something far more complicated and I need your help, they'll call you back. They'll come back. They're like, yeah, I was working with that team and they're great. They're fantastic, but I need this complicated thing. And so, yeah, I need you. And I know you're more expensive. I'm willing to pay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I recommend splitting that up and then having that conversation about it.
Okay. That's great. So let's get back to kind of the world of like building these websites for businesses, right? You come up with your price point and sometimes it's kind of abstract and you don't really know how that price point is going to work until you launch. If you launch your business, your online store, and the business isn't trafficking, is there room in there to kind of be flexible and maybe rethink what your price point is? Does that conversation ever happen?
Absolutely. And you can definitely rethink your price point. You can move your price point down. But if you move your price point down, take something out of your offering, right? So here's the thing people don't know, right? For years and years, the price of peanut butter has barely moved up, right? You go into a store, you buy a one of those plastic jars of peanut butter, and you're like, same price. Well, how did they pull that off, right? How did they not change the price of peanut butter when the price of everything else was changing?
Yeah.
To figure it out, you have to take the peanut butter jar off the shelf and you have to flip it over and look at the bottom. And when you look at the bottom, you'll notice a dimple, right? There's a dimple in the jar. They took out 2.5 ounces. They kept the price the same. They took 2.5 ounces out. By doing that, they increased the per ounce price. They were able to grow their price without you feeling like they grew their price. So if you're a store builder, right, and you used to say, I will build your site, I will design your site, I will launch your site, and also I'll migrate your content from the other store to this store, take the migration out. And you go, I will do this, and this for less. And so now you have a lower price point that the market may attract, and you may say, now I have found my sweet spot, this is working, but you don't have the migration piece in it. And so now when someone says, oh, and by the way, I need migration, you go, oh, that's it. That's different. That's an extra price, right? And they go, oh, okay, that's fine. Or they say, no, I'll do it myself. Whatever, right? But don't just change your price, right? Change your price, find that fit in the market, but you can also take some things out. I can't tell you the number of times I've said to a prospect, listen, the e-commerce store you're talking about is about $75,000, but I can walk you through how we could bring it down to $40,000 if your team is willing to do some work. And the customer goes, yep, I already got these people. Like they're sitting here already. Yes, if you have a way to make them work, we'll put them to work. And if that cuts your price, then yeah, let's do that. And then I've had others who are like, no, we'll pay the full boat. I don't want my staff touching it. I want you to do it, right? So you can create options where, in fact, I recommend when you're putting price in front of someone that you never put one price, right? That you put 2 or 3 prices in front of them. Here's your good, here's your better, here's your best. If you want me to do every single thing, here it is. Here's everything's included at the best point. But if you're price conscious and you're worried about this, then here's my good price, which is a lot less than my best price. And here's one in the middle, right? And you'll discover by giving people 3 options, you end up making it a lot easier for them to say yes to you, because they would have to say no 3 times to say no altogether. But you send them one price point, all they have to do is say no to that one, right? Yeah. So you just increase your odds dramatically if you give them 3 options than if you give them 1 option, right? Because someone's not necessarily ready to say no, no, no. They may go, no, hey, this one's pretty good. And you close that deal.
Okay. So let's tie this all back together. So you take products out as you lower your price. That to me seems to tie back to sustainability, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
How does that all work? You're just trying to find.
the core of what you're trying to do is you're trying to find profitability, right? You're trying to find, it's not that you want a ridiculous profitability factor, right? But if you're in the professional services game, if you bill $1, you don't keep $1, right? You bill $1 and then you're like, okay, I have to pay myself, but I also have to pay hosting, or I have to pay advertising, marketing, Facebook ads. Maybe I have someone as an admin. I have to pay my CPA. There's a lot of people that have to get paid off that $1, right? So if I do $1 worth of work, I can't charge $1. I have to charge $1.30, $1.60. I got to charge $2, right? And so when you're building out that price point, and when you're thinking about, flat pricing for specific kinds of projects, you have to go, okay, do I have enough to cover what's called overhead, right? That's the cost that I incur that I have to spread out across all my projects, right? So if I have a accountant, right? That accountant, maybe they cost me $1,200 over the year. That's $100 a month. And let's say I do 2 projects a month, that's $50 a project. My project has to cover $50 because that's overhead, right?
Yeah.
But I don't just live for, the cost of the work plus the overhead. I want profit. I want sustainability. I want enough profit so that I'm around next month and the month after that. So that means if I have to add the cost of doing the work plus the overhead, then I want to add another layer of profit. And when I do that, right, then this is what the total is, right? And a lot of times, if you're working with store builders who've been doing this a little bit, they can tell you, it normally takes me 6 hours to do this. It normally takes me 10 hours to do this. It normally takes me 20. And you go, great, let's put that together with our overhead and our profit margin, our project management, our testing, our documentation. These are all costs that people tend to forget. And then when they're doing them, they realize, oh, I lost my shirt. And you go, right, let's make sure we've covered everything. And then we have clarity on this is what the price point should be.
Okay. That was terrific. Thank you so much, Chris.
Awesome.
All right, we'll see you in a little bit.
Take care.
All right, folks, there you have it. That wraps up my conversation with Chris Lemma. He shared a ton of valuable insights and advice today on what you can do to make sure your website is secure. We also shared some tools and resources, which will all be linked up in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Please consider subscribing, sharing with a friend, or leaving us a review in your favorite podcast directory. Until next time, best of luck in all that you do, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Store Builders Podcast.